Very good evening once again. I'm Shaiti Narula. You're watching In Depth. Over 60 world leaders gathered at the United Nations on 23rd of September to try to inject fresh momentum into stalling efforts to curb carbon emissions. And at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was amongst the first set of speakers to address the summit. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, set the agenda, saying that the time for the words is over and the world now needs to act. Here's a look.
The time for talking is over. The world needs to act now.
The UN's annual General Gathering of World Leaders opened on 23rd of September, with UN Secretary General hosting a major summit promoting action to slow climate change.
My generation has failed in its responsibility to protect our planet. That must change. The climate emergency is a race we are losing, but it is a race we can win. The climate crisis is caused by us, and the solutions must come from us.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the third world leader to address the summit.
We believe that an ounce of practice is worth more than a ton of preaching.
Urging world leaders to act immediately to protect the environment, Prime Minister Modi called for a comprehensive action to tackle climate change.
Excellencies, क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेकर दुनिया भर में अनेक प्रयास हो रहे हैं, लेकिन हमें यह बात स्वीकारनी होगी कि इस गंभीर चुनौती का मुकाबला करने के लिए उतना नहीं किया जा रहा है जितना कि होना बहुत अनिवार्य है। आज जरूरत है एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव अप्रोच की, जिसमें एजुकेशन, वैल्यूज और लाइफस्टाइल से लेकर डेवलपमेंट फिलॉसफी भी शामिल हो।
He underscored need, not greed, as a guiding principle and highlighted India's efforts in tackling the challenge of climate change. The Prime Minister said that India is against single-use plastic and called for using solar energy, a move supported by 80 countries.
Excellencies, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंच की बात करें तो लगभग 80 देश हमारी इंटरनेशनल सोलर एनर्जी की पहल के साथ जुड़ चुके हैं। मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि भारत और स्वीडन अन्य पार्टनर्स के साथ मिलकर इंडस्ट्री ट्रांजिशन ट्रैक के लीडरशिप ग्रुप का लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। यह पहल सरकारों और निजी क्षेत्र को साथ लेकर इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए लो कार्बन में अहम भूमिका अदा करेगी।
Meanwhile, even as Prime Minister Modi prepared to begin his address, there was a surprise guest in the audience, US President Donald Trump. President Trump was not scheduled to attend the crucial session on climate change, but he showed up to the surprise of world leaders. Trump's critics in the US have said that he abdicated the country's role as a global leader on climate change after announcing the US would no longer abide by the Paris Climate Agreement. But his presence at the key meet on climate change has left many guessing.
As a result of food production.
Meanwhile, Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change Prakash Javadekar has lauded India's target to increase non-fossil fuel as being unprecedented. Here's a look.
The Prime Minister addressed the Climate Change Summit and he said it's time for the world to do more. So what is it that India expects of the world when it comes to climate change?
I think today Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, set the tone for this climate summit, because in the very initial speech he said that we will be expanding our renewable energy targets from 175 gigawatt to 450 gigawatt, 450,000 megawatts. It will be the huge program of the world. No country has taken up this. We are also giving solar power to UN building, and we are also launching Mahatma Gandhi's values here, because Mahatma Gandhi used to say, which he made reference to, that world can run sustainably only when we follow the need and not the greed.
So now listening to what United Nations Ambassador for Environment for India, Dia Mirza, said on the United Nations Climate Action Summit. Here's an excerpt of that conversation.
What brings you to New York? What's happening?
It's been a formidable 2 days. I met the Secretary General yesterday along with my fellow Sustainable Development Goals advocates. It's an enormous opportunity to make a difference for people and the planet.
How do we do that? How do we make this difference to lives of people?
The Sustainable Development Goals are an incredible roadmap. If each and every one of us, institutions, organizations, governments, the private sector and the public sector start adopting the SDGs, I think we can make a remarkable difference. Because the focus is on climate action and the fact that we are facing a climate emergency, I think what we are hoping to achieve in this decade of action is development goals that will combat climate change.
Despite Prime Minister Narendra Modi's clarion call to ban single-use plastic in India, the feasibility of making this transition to a relatively plastic-free future is far from reality. Experts are now pointing out the systems are not in place to make a seamless transition. Here's a report on all that takes, and it takes a look at the scale of the problem as well.
India has a per capita plastic consumption of 11 kilograms per year, one of the lowest in the world. The global average stands at 28 kilograms per year. But India generates about 26,000 tons of plastic waste every single day.
The government to eliminate single-use plastic is a very, very important environmental step. Now, is it easy? The answer is no. It's going to be very, very difficult because over the last 3 decades, our entire lifestyle has become accustomed to the use of single-use plastics. And they are now everywhere. They're omnipresent, whether you are going to buy a product in the market, your packaging, your food. For example, health and plastic packaging is now synonymous. Many companies would tell you that just for the reason of health, they would like to continue plastic packaging. So this is not an easy job to eliminate single-use plastic. Some of them we should do as quickly as possible. For example, plastic cutleries, polythene bags, those are things that can be done easily, but things like multi-layer plastic and other kind of plastics which are used to package food product and health product is going to be difficult. We need to give more time to the industry to adapt and develop alternatives.
Versatile, durable, pliable and cheap to produce. 40% of all plastic produced globally is for packaging and is used just once and then discarded. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is leading efforts to scrap single-use plastics by 2022 and plans to launch the campaign on 2nd October. But experts point out the problem begins right from the definition.
Different states are coming out with different definitions of single-use plastic. Now, this is creating a huge amount of problem. As an environmentalist, I believe that if you want to give correct signal, if you want to achieve certain environmental objectives, something like single-use plastic, you need to have a national definition and you need to have a national roadmap. You can't allow industry to ban certain product in Maharashtra and not ban in Uttar Pradesh, for example. So I think a national definition of single-use plastic, a national roadmap, of course the implementation has to be done by the municipality and the state government.
Lack of a well-thought-out roadmap is what has derailed Maharashtra's endeavour to shake off the plastic. On 23rd June 2018, the government of Maharashtra enforced a ban on single-use plastic across the state, effectively making single-use plastic or disposable plastic such as plastic grocery bags, cups, straws, food packages, etc. off limits. BMC was tasked with implementing the ban in Mumbai. For the first few months, there was some momentum on ground as authorities conducted regular check-up rounds, booked offenders, ensuring more people complied with the law. But the move lost steam and plastic was back on the block. Many say that the BMC implemented the ban without offering any option and that the customers were angered with the move.
अभी क्या करूँगा फिर? ग्राहक भी कम हो जाते फिर। अभी कोई भी कुछ भी मांगेगा बोलेगा भाई हमको थैली दो। अभी थैली कहाँ दूँ उसको मैंने? जैसे हम छोटे मोटे दुकान वाले हैं, अभी देखो कोई 10 रुपए का सामान मांगता है, कोई 5 रुपए का सामान था, हम किस में दिया जाए? तो ये सब हमको ऑप्शन हो जाता है। क्या है अभी देखो थैली भी इतना महंगा हो गया है, थैली भी बहुत महंगा आ रहा है, अपने को नहीं पड़ रहा है थैली। अभी बीएमसी भी इतना दे दिया है 51 माइक्रोन यूज करने के लिए, बाकी अभी तक और कोई ऑप्शन नहीं दिया है। अभी 2 तारीख से देखो क्या होता है, 2 तारीख के बाद में भी क्या ऑप्शन देते हैं।
प्लास्टिक बिक रही है और उसके ऊपर ये हो गया कि जो पैसे की लेन देन था वो ज़्यादा बढ़ गया। जो ऑफिसर है, जो उनका स्क्वाड है, जाते हैं कहीं पे अगर वो पकड़ भी रहे इस तरह का कोई उनको डिटेक्ट करे तो वहाँ पे पैसे लेके रफा दफा कर देते हैं मामला जो है। तो सरकार को चाहिए कि कानून आप ले रहे हो उसको पूरी तरह से पालन करना चाहिए। इसके बारे में मैंने एक आरटीआई फाइल किया था कि पिछले जब से प्लास्टिक बैन हुआ है अब तक कुल कितना किया, लेकिन 1 महीना हो गया आज तक उसकी उन्होंने जानकारी नहीं दी। मुझे फर्स्ट अपील में जाना पड़ा है। तो कहीं ना कहीं बीएमसी कुछ छुपाने की कोशिश कर रही, शायद आंकड़े छुपाने की कोशिश कर रहे।
The opposition, on the other hand, says it is corruption that is the root cause of the failure.
The implementation of the plastic ban, which has to be, I think after 1 year, if you see, it has to be totally banned. But I think it's a failure on the part of the state government and the BMC.
More than a year later, after the plastic ban came into force, the plastic in various forms continues to be in circulation in various markets across the city. With elections just around the corner, the civic body would be deploying its force for election duty, which would make the task all the difficult for the civic body to implement the ban.
In 2019, climate change featured in election manifesto of both the Bharatiya Janata Party as well as the Congress. And in terms of the environment, the Modi government began its second term at an unenviable level, that is at the bottom of the pile. According to the Global Environment Performance Index ranking in 2018, India was at the 177th position out of 180 countries, down from 141 in 2016. Here's a look.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and President Emmanuel Macron of France are recognized.
In October 2018, the United Nations Environment Programme selected Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron for the Champions of the Earth Award, which is the UN's highest environmental honor. And time and again, the Narendra Modi-led BJP government has declared its commitment to saving environment. From the ramparts of the Red Fort, the Prime Minister thundered.
हम भारत को सिंगल यूज प्लास्टिक, क्या इससे देश को मुक्ति दिला सकते हैं? हम निकल पड़े, टोलियां बना करके निकल पड़े, स्कूल, कॉलेज, हम सब पूज्य बापू को याद करते हुए, और घर में प्लास्टिक हो, सिंगल यूज प्लास्टिक, या बाहर चौराहे पर पड़ा हो, गंदी ना, सब इकट्ठा करें। नगर पालिकाएं, महानगर पालिकाएं, ग्राम पंचायत सब इसको जमा करने की व्यवस्था करें, और हम प्लास्टिक को विदाई देने की दिशा में 2 अक्टूबर को एक पहला मजबूत कदम उठा सकते हैं क्या?
Attending the G7 summit in France, the Prime Minister of India was clear in his wording.
बायोडायवर्सिटी हो, क्लाइमेट चेंज हो, कूलिंग और गैस के इश्यूज हो, इन सभी विषयों पर भारत सदियों से, परंपरा से, संस्कृति से, संस्कार से प्रकृति के साथ तालमेल करके ही जीने के पक्ष का रहा है। प्रकृति का विनाश कभी भी मानव कल्याण के लिए उपकारक नहीं हो सकता है।
But year after year, things kept going from bad to worse. In a report released in June 2018, Niti Aayog claimed 21 major cities, including the capital New Delhi, will run out of groundwater by 2020. Some claimed it had a doomsday flair to its predictions. It grabbed some headlines but never saw the government swing into action. A year later, Chennai came dangerously close to day zero. Since 2014, when the BJP-led NDA came to power, key changes have been brought about in environmental laws and regulations in India. The government introduced standardized guidelines for conducting environment impact studies and issuing environmental clearances. Reports suggest that the time required to obtain green clearances has now dropped from 580 to 180 days. More recently, the Union government announced its intention to amend the Indian Forest Act, ostensibly a view to protecting and conserving forests and forest produce. However, environmental experts say that the amendments will bring in over-centralization of state authority, and it will be in conflict with the Forest Rights Act of 2006, which confers titles and rights to traditional forest dwellers. Under the circumstances, it should also be noted that in 2018, according to international listing, 15 of the world's 20 most populated cities were in India.
We are in a new climate crisis era, and that adaptation means proactive, governance and a different model of governance rather than a Gadkari model of governance, which is only about the speed at which we are building the roads is what is a success story. And success story of Javadekar is not about environment protection, but is about environmental clearance. He says that I'm the best environment minister because I give clearance to cut forest and to mining projects and to other river linking projects faster than any other minister in the history of our country.
As far as Paris Agreement is concerned, today the global emission is far higher than what it was in 2015. No country has been able to bend the curve, and emissions are increasing. In fact, in 2018, the emissions from United States was highest, in the last 2 decades. So the world is struggling as far as Paris Agreement is concerned. As far as India is concerned, I think the one progress that we have made is in renewable energy field. Our installation of solar and wind power has increased rapidly, especially solar power. And in last 5 years, our solar has increased. We are now about 80 gigawatt of renewable energy, which is not a mean achievement. So we have done very well as far as solar is concerned. We have also done well, but we could do better with energy efficiency and building design and those things. But we have done better, but we need to do a lot more, especially on adaptation front, because we are now suffering the impacts of climate change.
It is a fact that India has emerged as the global leader in renewable energy. India is now investing more in them than it is in fossil fuels. So is the industrial India ready to take the right steps to further mitigate its carbon footprint? We speak to the president of the business and industrial body, FICCI.
India will more than double its renewable energy from 175 gigawatts to 450 gigawatts. That is the first sign in terms of us tackling global warming, because this renewable energy will replace thermal energy, which causes a lot of carbon emissions. As far as Indian industry goes, I think a lot of effort is being made by Indian industry to be much more environment friendly. And in fact, if you see, on a per capita basis, India has among the lowest carbon footprints in the world. We are actually far better than the developed world. They use the energy far more callously than we use in India.
By the United Nations Secretary General's efforts, the United Nations Climate Action Summit was somewhat overshadowed by its absentees. Most notably, the United States and Bolsonaro's Brazil, while the German Chancellor Angela Merkel set out the end of the coal mining in her country by 2038, China declined to put forward any new measures to tackle the climate crisis, much to the disappointment of the environmentalists. This summit came days after millions of young people took to the streets worldwide to demand emergency action on climate change. Here's a look.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
This 16-year-old climate activist, Greta Thunberg, has become one of the leading voices for a generation confronting the consequences of a warmer planet.
People are starting to understand your betrayal.
But posting the fatalistic statement that the Swedish teen had made, US President Donald Trump mocked her on Twitter. It was in August 2018 when Greta began protesting outside the Swedish parliament to bring attention to climate change. And since her protest began, teenagers in dozens of countries have followed suit, culminating in climate strikes in more than 150 countries in the last 1 week alone. The global strikes were timed to coincide with the United Nations Climate Action Summit.
I want to know where freedom lives.
I want to know where freedom lives.
I want to know when freedom dies.
I want to know when freedom dies.
Activists seeking to pressure US politicians to fight climate change blocked major traffic hubs in the US capital, chaining themselves to a sailboat in one location. The protest, called Shut Down DC, was backed by about 24 groups.
For the last 8 years, I've pretty much worked full-time as a volunteer to try and do something to save the planet for my grandchildren and my children. And educating, lobbying, electing people to office has done absolutely nothing. The emissions keep going up, so we've finally, like all other great movements in United States history, we've decided that it's time to do nonviolent direct action on a large scale.
In New York City, over 60,000 people participated in a protest to call attention to global climate change. Over 1 million students in New York public schools were given the day off to participate with written permissions from their parents.
Let's go. I hope that the older generation will realize that us kids, we aren't just here to like goof around and hang out, that we're actually trying to make a point. That we aren't just nobodies who do nothing, that we actually care about stuff and that we want this earth to keep going on.
In India as well, protesters over all age groups got together to create awareness about changing climatic conditions.
The one thing they want to shout out is that denial is not a policy and people need to accept climate change and people need to be that change to ensure that the nature is preserved for the future.
The message we want to give out is that the people are watching. Governments have had their way of thinking that when they right away land and water resources to corporations, that no one is watching. That day is over. And I hope the government takes credible climate action this time.
We didn't want to just hold the placards, whereas we wanted it to be very meaningful for the participants as well as the people who are looking at it. So we wanted to convey a message to all the people. So the important message with the local context is Save Chennai Wetlands.
Last 3 years has been into a very catastrophic state, right from the heavy rains to the floods and to the dry weather to the less rainwater. So it's a problem that we definitely understand. And what we people in Chennai feel is that it is important that we take some action. And it's the right time that we step into it, because the fact that we felt the problems, it's important that we also need to understand what is the solution for it. So people here have gathered to find out what is the solution and to create awareness among the people.
That's a wrap from me, Chethy Narula on In Depth. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for your time. Stay with us here on India Today. Coming up next, To The Point with Shivarur.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.